Hey, do we have all three of the judges?
I think we're missing Scott Wheeler.
Yeah, I think
We
so.
are.
So we might
Was
wait
it
on
Wheeler or
that.
Drew? I thought it was Drew.
Well, it was
They
Drew,
switched.
but we don't have either, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, that's a good thing.
I think they switched.
Is someone from the tournament? Drew, can you hear us?
Yep, I'll let them know.
Okay.
/ ask.
Hey, the bathroom.
Okay.
All right, I believe the wheels for whatever's supposed to happen have been set in motion. I believe Wheeler has arrived.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
I'm here. Sorry, I thought it was at 1. Because the one email said that.
Yeah, so did I. I was actually sitting in the office of my principal and got a buzz on my phone and was like, whoops. So
The one I see has been sent. So just whenever people are ready.
Okay, let me get up. We're after, so I guess it's good. But
You being reprimanded out?
the 15 minutes was truncated. What were you saying?
was I being reprimanded, Freehand? Is that what you were asking? No, I was in there throwing a fit because Keisha says that we can't debate ever, basically. So
Fair enough.
Oh.
Legit complaint.
Let me just, okay. Let me open up flow chart.
Oh no, this not Kevinson.
Oh.
It's in the Dropbox. What's done?
Are we good?
I'm
Okay. Cool. Plan of the United States Federal Government should act as digital criminal justice reform in the area of policing and or sentencing on financial crime, including the curtailment of financial regulation, statutes with criminal penalties. Advantage 1 is e-cost viewer session now goes global. Excessive financial regs and corporate debt, not COVID, caused a barricade 20. 12% of the world's companies use always corporate debt, not a good shape of Christ, making problems to the surface destruction of the economy is in a good place. That might be where we cover the economy. The underlying problems of recession be blamed for a virus outbreak with the underlying problems of the economy, and financial regulations discourage innovation and investment in capital markets. Regulation outweighs COVID. TAM 20. Stocks and news deal their cutting was incorrect. Markets correct in response to federal government's reaction to bankruptcies, crisis, everything due to the government intervention and natural workings of the economy, capital available business, because the individual improve their economic situation by saving a role for government meddling, so it would have been self-correcting, criticized the news freaks, studying market correction, only for politicians to ensure themselves as a political crisis and investing or putting a crashing market price on. Regs enable aggressive SEC policing at the root cause of the corporate debt bomb. COVID will cause the debt bubble to pop. Freedman 20 stocks to defend to meet an incentive for corporate leaders. That's a way to keep all the companies and incentive to hold more debt than otherwise would require markets using up companies because they get the risk of default. You're sitting on top of an unexploded bomb, and the impact is economic growth. Excessive regulatory burden distracts the public capital markets, which are crucial to America's economic strength. Tucker 18, the power of the economic growth media capital markets, the eighth one of the world that powers and danger there have been there. And to drive economic growth, number of publicly traded companies fall more than half their repeated investment opportunities. Individual investors are forced to invest and really pull the public market to become holding better for sleep corporation and represents American capitalism trying to be systematically back. Two stocks on Congress managing regulatory companies are permanently settled expensive regulation, excessive regulation on U.S. capital markets, and great power. Sandarum 19. Prolonged economic crisis has been out of control, more from the military conflict and world war, monetary interventions, little just economic weakness, monetary tightening, tax price bubble, and the economic crisis likely to end the economic source, likely development war and extinction, loose nukes, man 14, Ethan convicted of calculus, future conflict, economic challenges, global security threats, economic climate by the U.S. economic conference, rival states, may challenge American status for solely and so many WB pose threat to financial control, weapons vulnerable to theft, and U.S. economic strength is an impact filter, creates a cap and escalation and rules governing emerging tech. Borough 16, multilateral system, most purposeful and likely strong U.S. given so growth accelerated decline, U.S. facing difficult long-term challenges, the world will not have the West big economic powerhouse, and been difficult with arguments and conflicts between U.S. and Russia. And China with Russia can a new Cold War unity regarding the international system, tech carries big Russian engineering, biology, and tech without setting a world of risk of major disruption, economic power, consolidating Asia, conflict with inevitable, unregulated emerging tech causes extinction. Tated all 15 science technology various important advantage on possible dangers, or rising from military using nanotechnology to help fighting wars, failed to fight combat biological weapons, policy of terrorist intervention, new weapons, completion, arms, stabilization, America, they're more available, nanosystem, laboratory targeting materials, control species, plants, and animal vein, weapons, so containment of the radioactive materials, increased activity, self-regulating, meeting mechanical, biological, by terrorism, greatly improving the plan is key to minimize the long-term economic damage posed by COVID and facilitate enough capital expansion to avoid the debt bomb. Isaac 20. Use confronting with serious challenge over the more severe comes more likely financial institution will suffer as well, and to including releasing financial institution from rules, so the impacts of coronavirus have become a longer, more expensive financial event. Laws, rules, Malaysia, limit the ability of lenders, regulators to do their job. Financial institution have the opportunity to deprive the country of the confidence, serious recession, depression, determined financial backbone of the country to be disturbed by temporary health crisis. Government requires liberals regulatory forbearance to get everyone through the crisis, and eliminating corporate penalties from stocks, executing corporate creativity and expansion while preserving financial accountability. Free reimbursed tax stocks to corporate creativity and expansion punishment consequently made management reluctant to take risks. They brought the economy working back periods of stagnation or recession. Corporate officers less likely to take risks, have to devote more short-term defensive action than offensive, with the burden of stocks that we've been benefits from to provide the estimate under British economic growth, creativity, regulation, restrict the freedom of the U.S. market to be performed, and comprehensive studies prove stocks decrease corporate risk taking and foreign investment. Like fact 14, the coefficient of interest can be consistent with those after stocks levels of risk, faster going forward, subject to stocks experience larger declines in risk, younger riskier, high risk, autos considered may increase compliance costs from carry the burden, bad position, and offsetting benefits. Stocks encourage corporations to reduce risk, stocks have effect on foreign costs of the company. The answer to BS volatility, base risk managers decline strongly across the board, and long-term trends are driving decoupling, growth sustainable and self-correcting. Brick at all 15, humanities flourish, violence is lowest everywhere. Limits of growth, theoretical management, humans are nervous, lacking ag environmental threats, cause catastrophic impact, trends are driving decoupling, population growth is down, modernization not possible with the substitution of grain economy. Ag is allowed, reforestation, use of resources is peaking, country and growth demand be saturating. The human American decline is century promoting these processes. Humans have the opportunity to regreen the earth. Climate is technological challenge, even dramatic limits have to be insufficient. And prevent change, there's no credible path to mitigation. Humans always depend on nature to some degree. Take is not inevitable. Human transformation of environments began well before market to often modernization conflated with capitalism. Modernization, the evolution of arrangement, modernization, process apart from complete coupling over price, commitment, tech progress, and active participation in markets and state. An advantage to is corporate federalism. Stocks and successor laws gradually federalize corporate governance to strengthen superior state regimes. Bainbridge 14, federalization using well-entrenched market state start countries open and say legal regimes competition to rotate from adopting excessively statute efficient solution to corporate law problems when out of time around study supports the races have a hypothesis uniformity posed by stocks will preclude experimentation with differing modes of regulation. No laboratory federalism these rules may quickly become obsolete, and the impact is corporate innovation and effective financial regs. Stocks draconian expansion of criminal penalties and SEC policing usurp state initiatives, ensuring heavy-handed anti-creative corporate governance. Saying right. As long as many made stocks violation may lead to competent individuals watching concerned jails or senior executives given the potential for changing financial managers spend much time to complain to rather than developing optimal capital structure plan to be reconsidered by corporation traditional regulatory events of the city stocks doing landscape by sending cars the SEC never previously in the purview of federal agency state law has been accommodating and encourages taking federal regulation be heavy-handed limiting measures and second guessing innovation and creativity. Or to say one step ahead of the regulators corporate criminals will continue to weigh crime and specifically federal control like digital currency innovation. The mere existence of federal securities law discourages investment in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and is supporting blockchain tech. Azaria at all 18. The SEC without claiming jurisdiction to overreach from the SEC without threat of overregulation, chill innovation, improving blockchain tech created could be subject to red tape, such as stocks and Dodd-Frank. The has been limited by SEC interpretation, securities laws, SEC advising regulate cryptocurrencies and causes blockchain and crypto investment to move overseas. Reducing SEC authority is key. Tucker 17, the SEC issued warning crypto asset would be regulated like regular securities, strengthening the claim the market for crypto assets is booming. There's no way for the government market to be allowed to work at warp speed. There's no way for the government to release all this. SEC is claim to stop the progress history could be devastating economic regulation of our lifetime become the world haven for innovation. All with these actions in the SEC and digital currencies are inevitable post-COVID actions accelerating domestic innovation. innovation. The U.S. sees the race to China. The impact is dollar hedge. KC20 central to confidence in dollars role. The global reserve currency digitization currency will be the most important factor in the economy success. China winning the digital currency battle. The U.S. and the catch-up stage is going to lose the war. Digital currency revolution should begin millennium bill. Reward first mover economy. China victory in digital currency raises multiple negative effects for the U.S. Foreign central banks will need to back up currency dollar reserves to encourage the U.S. consider more accommodating stance of regulation of cryptocurrency to make some stop periodicity available to most possibility dominant digital currencies and causes global currency wars. Goes nuclear. Zotari 14. Voter actors close around undermining U.S. financial price. U.S. dollar target for competitive conversion into rapid into land financial workers international system alliance could target economic vulnerabilities of the U.S. access to nuclear material raise the spectrum of alliance conversion line against U.S. auto lens. U.S. geopolitical economic and political system offers great influence by installation of international crisis currency World War III assessment. Monetary power detected to be detonated by the other side of currency wars power out of control sudden deterioration political relations contributing major power dollar rate superior for now the enemy nuclear weapons becoming financial wars for the U.S. to adapt and independently Chinese domination of blockchain tech ensures weaponization against the U.S. cause gray zone warfare and irreversible Chinese tech superiority. Massive 18. Blockchain technology offers numerous defensive offensive tools from massive blockchain tools of different power and influence over others publicly utilized by the Chinese. It can be used to undermine the U.S. blockchain will impact every area of finance, economies, and money can be used to manipulate data without being detected. Blockchain technology fits in the gray zone, the uncertain nature gray zone warfare makes blockchain show appealing channel increasingly when exercise international pattern military spirits. China's already showing signs in the SES. With blockchain, China's growing power will grow. It will also create social strife and approach from fragment and weaken the economic weapon. Instead of blockchain, if electronic election system would be compromised. Whoever weaponized blockchain has will achieve the human reduction in cyberspace and Chinese tech superiority and the global balance of power goes nuclear. Chrono 18 nuke technology causes nuclear conflict. Bending the balance of power, shift and balance of power to undermine effective bargaining technology, create destabilizing shift in the balance of power. China increase military capability. China may have the lead. They could be decisive of the future of warfare. Anything that will be willing to initiate conflict over Taiwan and scenario could bring nuclear power to direct conflict. There's inherent risk of nuclear conflict, accident, or inadvertent escalation. Preserve being prepared for prevailing power balance of the consequence of watching losing race to technological theory of nuclear Armageddon and extinction. Winner 11. These possess over 5,000 nuclear warheads with nation producers radioactive waste and radioactive breach blocks and sun bringing nuclear and destroying and creating famine and generating destruction chains governments monitoring nuclear weapons. In the plan resistance enforcement of corporate governance mandates and stocks and descendant provisions in Dodd-Frank effectively combat the erosion of competitive federalism at the basis of corporate law. Bainbridge 11 talks mandates distributors and alternative approach for a majority of issues and investors to remove corporate governance provisions completely from federal law and remit those to the states and opting over Congress that defines the federal appear to be case the ratchet effect size of governance can move only in one direction each the effect of ratcheting up long-term size and scope of government believes there's the same pattern of corporate governance. The overall trend benefits to the federal like talks provision of Dodd-Frank criteria of corporate governance proposals like strong empirical theoretical justification for system competitive federalism law by displacing state regulation federal law federalization corporate governance has continued to creep ahead and for appealing stocks solves corporate federalism defangs the SEC and induces states to govern financial law more effectively. Reminding corporate competition service and credit arrangements of the government non-purpose for federal action bringing the optimal compared to that repeal is adaptation for more appropriate locus regulatory authority than Congress operating conducted by corporation choosing which state incorporate can change regulatory competition prior to regulatory incentive to be accountable and has there is a feedback mechanism incentive for state to prefer local corporation increasing regulatory authority SEC to make the interpretation of authority but long card statutory interpretation could be regulated by Congress getting usual by providing higher values to better demonstrating perfect governance rules in Congress. The SEC, the corporate governance managed to be rescinded by removing the completely redirecting jurisdictional authority to the states. I'm moving for cross-ex.
Cool. Which financial regulation statutes do you change and how?
The affirmative gets rid of financial regulations with criminal penalties.
What are those? What do they do? Like, what do they look like?
We think examples of these regulations include components of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act and Dodd-Frank.
Okay.
Some examples.
Yeah.
Cool. Who in the USFG does the AF? Who in the USFG does the AF?
The USFG does the AF.
Who in it?
The USFG does the AF. I'm not specing more than the resolution.
Sounds rough. What happens when the judge votes AF?
We think that the judge says we did the better debating.
Cool. Which card on the second advantage describes the internal link between cryptocurrency and tech supremacy in Taiwan, which is what your impact card is about?
The impact is about tech supremacy broadly and the destabilizing nature of tech supremacy if China has it ahead of the others. No, your argument is that it's only in the context of Taiwan. No, the bottom half of the Kronig evidence indicates it could cause miscalc in any scenario.
Looking at the Kronig card, but what's the internal link between crypto and tech supremacy is the question.
Oh, yeah, that question is easy. The Casey evidence indicates, that the Casey evidence is in the context of dollar hedge. The Matisic evidence is in the context of Chinese domination of blockchain causes tech superiority. I can go through the internal links in the Matisic evidence if you like.
The Matisic evidence?
Yeah,
blockchain.
Matisic 18.
Why does blockchain matter for our military technical capabilities?
Yeah, sure. So it gives a laundry list of impacts. Blockchain can be used to manipulate data without being detected. It can sort of change the way that they do military technology. It can create social strife. It can change the way that our election systems run.
Blockchain just like a fancy name for open sourcing every level of updates in like a certain file or area? What stops the US from just doing that without the best cryptocurrency in the world?
Because the blockchain technology is a question of, it's not a question of open sourcing.
We have blockchain technology.
Right, but it's a
well,
question of the
does.
blockchain technology specifically provided by the by innovative cryptocurrency innovations. Yeah.
And this internal link isn't based off of maintaining dollar hedge, just the first one. Blockchain can be used to anonymously interact with it and create tons of interactions and tons of different levels, which means that China can like manipulate data basically anonymously, and we have no clue they're doing it, but it decks like overall readiness. It's like what Matasek says.
What stops us from, or what innovations are prevented now on blockchain and on?
Obviously, because the innovations haven't happened yet, I can't decide to tell you exactly what technology they innovate. What I can tell you is our evidence assumes sort of differing regulation structure, which is the only way to prevent sort of blockchain investors and companies from moving to China and selling their technology there.
Okay, thanks.
It should be sent. It's 10 off advantage 1, advantage 2.
Hey, y'all. So, all of you observers, just so you know, there is a live stream on YouTube that will probably give you a better viewing experience and will interfere with the quality of the signal for all the debaters less. I will send the link to that in the chat for those of you who don't have it in a second.
Does everyone have it? I know everyone's leaving for observers, whatever, but does the Caddo, do you guys have it? Okay. Everyone good? Good. Okay. First off, the United States Executive Branch promulgated substantial criminal justice reform in the area of policing and sentencing through the curtailment of financial regulation statute with criminal penalties. The delegated lawmaking solves the absence of legally binding laws. 15, when the agency promulgated rules, the rules look and feel much like congressionally enacted statute, providing binding statute norms that govern everything. Regulation can bind courts, officers for federal government, preempt state law, and impose criminal penalties. The courts declare rulemaking to be permissible if and in the city of executive function, the court is able to rubber stamp next off the clean funding bill and avoids a shutdown now. New legislation crowds it out. Nicholson, not for an agreement to keep the funding bill will use fears of a shutdown. It should keep the government open. The deadline could result in another shutdown. The House and Senate face bills that are not expected to be sizable until full time. The Senate is in session for 11 days. The plan trades off and causes shutdown to spree. This episode, the police reform causes shutdown. The stakes are much higher. The move to tie appropriations to police reform case aspect the ability to avoid a shutdown and reach an agreement on spending. The proposal critical plans the policing after the person cause a purpose impact leads to a government shutdown. The Congress would hammer out any differences. Shutdown tanks cybersecurity that causes attack. Whitaker, not even Homeland Security states above cybersecurity are suffering the most of the longer the shutdown. The greater the chance of the tighter budget said SOF could be for the third of intel would take a hit. The shutdown could result in long-lasting damage. Cyber threats could stop because of a shutdown. Trying to keep the cyber plate spinning out while not at full strength. This risky states will exploit U.S. vulnerability. Single cycles nuclear null. 56 cyber attacks are increasing. The one can have a devastating cascading effect. Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea may wage war, even launch nuclear weapons. Single key short cyber pull harbor next warfare relies on semiotic structures that gives rise to the arbitrary othering and ignores the process through which conflict occurs. Oberg, 16 the liberal way of rule shaped by an emergency. The liberal wars are policing of humanitarian violence leads to an ending war against the uncertainty that transparency gives rise to an alienation. Violently circumscribe the subject. Everything must be easily visible. It gives the illusion of choice, but which traps subject in a particular organizational architecture that errors reduce the truth and enhance the aberrations are eradicated. The ideology is inherent part of the endangered racialized visual system that persists through exhaustion different transparency helps create an impetus for racialized out the bombings of Grab on NATO to specify the global subjectivity. The knowledge makes oversight difficult. Doctrines render warfare invisible through an excess of information. Doctrinal hierarchies enables the control of space and time. Doctrinal schedules make no distinction between peacetime and wartime. The possibility to kill is not indirectly produced as a part of the mundane task such as delivering food that would work for people. It's not a matter of killing, but when it is the next staff meeting, the global information group at the end of the point of fantasy, the banality of every life scenes appears as a target. The end point is the ultimate person position of the total control of the earth, and creates an underlying feature of military match. The warfare strives to operationalize violence that's transparent not only to itself but to the global benefit. Renders visible the only option radical passivity and mimicry the forms of the system one that accelerates them to the point of their obvious vacuity. Every attempt to carry coherence and presence in life and the goof is met by a concomitant move towards incoherence, absence of the evil, embraces complicity that maintains the possibility of evil, mystery, and radical alterity. Radical alterity. Paul it. 14 years of fight underground war being before we actually begin rejection and insurrection coming emergence from within radicalism. The motivators that lies within this allows for reality audience manifests of his death, evil and ambivalence. The critique is made through abstraction warfare, reabsorbed into the system. Any mythical change must be invented. So creativity may must necessarily the perfect crime, the elimination of the otherness, the reality lessons instructable as the system is. How I war with itself, that all critical theories are fight on training in which they are being before they actually begin helping to do a mode to be all greater emphasis and ambivalence reversal, but how personal collective measure rejection more subtle than others envisioned by the increasing exhaustive modes of the critique. Such a critique of the system can reproduce the rockers to reassure that something is being done. Mark it done. Next off, criminal justice is criminal law. The criminal law, the Act of Civil Law, Oregon. 07, criminal justice include all activities pertaining to criminal law. Next, it's key to legal precision. The court topic controversial turns out to limit and recording generics. Next off, Biden wins 2020. Now the best statistical evidence will enter the chart. Silver 912. The plan gives Trump that key accomplishment. The CGR is a salient issue that flips the election chunk. As 19, the CGR becoming a future in 2020. The Trump's opportunity takes advantage of the void the candidates feel to discuss the reform understanding is being important to the electorate. 70% of Democrats believe too many people are in prison. It's an issue voters care about. And candidates will be held accountable. A re-election cause extinction to start. 1920 to repeat a reversible. Trump plans to cancel existing climate reforms, and he is to pull out of the Paris, and he plans and he pull out of Paris, pull out of a national commitment to decarbonization, encouraging other countries to do nothing. Irreversible tipping points will also like the U.S. also had risk of nuclear Americans for attacks on unless withdrawal from arms control schemes. Where the leaders are hoping that Trump is a blip in his against world renewal. Also, last country may pursue nuclear operations in the Middle East and Northeast Asia. Next off, the appropriate number 50 states should invoke their power under the Article 5 of the Constitution called Limited Constitutional Convention for the purpose to enact substantial criminal justice reform in the sentencing and policing through the curriculum and financial regulation statute of the criminal penalty. The appropriate number 50 states will ratify the amendment. The catapult is the only way to durably solve the OGR 20 will have one of the most fundamental issues that many advocates is the key of the CGR amending the U.S. Constitution or advocating the CGR seeks to adjust the incremental transformational change. We are advocating for change the Constitution. Next off, the procedural Afghan is bad. The politics and or allows the after spike out of any specific next strategy makes the next program impossible. The politics is the only change the point for ground. They move that. Next off, the enact isn't the court's clear. Enactment is the product of legislation, not education, and finding an act to perform the legislative act. Vote next versus key to limits. The extra mechanism multiplied the topic. Get rid of the only topic limit generic counterplan. Second is predictable. Ours is the most precise. Turns out they're offensive. Is the only way we get to know what the apps are prepared for. I'll skip the federalism dissent. Next off is also the procedure. They didn't specify the agent that's a voting issue that makes it possible to gain competition for agent catapults. The only correct generic next comes first. The advantage. Econ advantage. Economic decline, increased cooperation, clarity 15, the economic stress associated with conciliatory policy, drawing on 109 distinct rival diets, reforming that 67 of which would determine rivalries, which prices likely to determine during downturns, peace, but from economic troubles, crises lead to austerity pressures, which incent leaders to cut defensive crisis, to encourage strategic reassessment, leads downplay the seriousness of a rival crisis, provoke that their prioritization of economic crisis, increase the benefit from international cooperation, leaders seek to aid it, trade and investment, and growth is unsustainable, innovation can't solve, shifting away from productivism is key to avoid education of books and cook. 17, the growth is in trying to allow ingenuity to solve problems, GDP increase default is natural or industrial action, and the resource inputs are non-renewable and generate waste to disturb ecosystems to letting human and planetary functioning in the short term. The EROEI will decrease, reducing the incentive to invest in the recovery peak while demand for the while demand increases that would have an impact on growth. Climate change may accelerate the very near future. The growth often turns to freshwater and forest, the ecosystem services, the purification of air and water, mitigation of droughts and floods, and detox of waste and pollination and pest control research that identify the show beyond which life on Earth will be put at risk. Important to this is the EKC does not take into account the difference between the relative and absolute decoupling to evidence for absolute decoupling due to radioactive effects and impacts that occur outside of the economy. The development of alternative models do not depend on growth as an urgent since the growth threatens the ability of the Earth to support life. Crisis now self-transition to a sustainable society. Lower back and all 16 growth fend off more radical systemic change and development will inevitably lead to crisis that are more disruptive and shocking solutions that reinforce locking in results in further problems, transfer of control to markets, and diminished possibility for policy making, adding to the brittlness and complexity and lock and rest influences social transformation phase and the broader economic transition of a deeper underlying structural societal change. Crisis fundamentally changes dominant conditions and implicitly grounded theory empirically grounded theory on transformative and social innovation. Crisis trigger transformative changes growth, increases war, both funds and motivates aggression. Cascades of resources leads to a lot of violence, and then as a government's competing to get access to growth can lead to an increase in military defense funding. That is the war chest may be used to pay for new continuing military engagement. This way, nations may be able to engage in more conflict, especially builds up conflicts to the point where they can feel invincible. Expansion actually increases at the MITs and trades maybe cheap in war. The federalism advantage. No explanation of how cryptocurrencies are innovative or why the innovation puts the Chinese tax supremacy in the context of military presence in Taiwan, which is what they're currently cards in the context of no currency wars. In 15, China's central bank reiterated that China Beijing had no intention of sparking a currency war. People of China said that the Chinese government had the need to participate in a currency war. Yuan's job last week increased flexibility really could help it reduce some adjustments in the future. And the no violent China rise here toward conflict or trade war. Zhu Tong 19, the bipolar in the world will not be on the brink of war. China's ambitions are much more narrow. The Chinese policy will focus on maintaining growth, but says will remain careful to manage the top of Beijing's priorities with liberal in order to build around free trade. There's no inclination this will change tariffs may seem, but they will never change. They will never change Beijing considered or turn away from its free trade. The image of version tries misleading Beijing result in trade ties. So it is low to a core confrontation. The caution will be the order of the day. China will carefully avoid pressing issues that might lead to war, such as SES, the subject of weaponization of space or risk of direct war remain amenable even as competition intensifies. Third, nuclear war keep tensions from escalating. China's leadership is acutely aware of the benefits of status quo and avoid putting these on the line that expecting tensions, but not global chaos. Tech reshoring now sells back 18 in high tech industry trying to account for small shares compared to the U.S. and the Chinese firms are combined to low tech manufacturing. As manufacturing has become automated with 3D printing AI and the China's labor cost of president firms have started reshoring to take advantage of low energy prices, high skill and proximity to consumers. Deloitte, Boston Consulting, and project that the U.S. will project that the U.S. will overtake China as the most competitive by 2020. Dodd-Frank is an all cost of cooperative federalism. Sheffin 14. Dodd-Frank constitutes the potential federal incursion to the corporate law applicable all issues falling under the SEC's jurisdiction. This settlement federal securities law. I'm good whenever you go.
status of the counterplans in the K?
Status quo is always an option.
The critique. Can this radical passivity ever result in the AF?
It cannot result in the F.
Cool. This radical passivity is a rejection of this sort of semiotic structure, right? Is the argument that the semiotic structure is sort of a form of like capital
It is not just
relations?
about semiotic structures and capitalism writ large. It's that warfare and liberalism as a whole has been coded by knowledge. And I think the best line that explains it is war is now not governed by like actual military technology, rather the staff room and like Excel sheets. It's information that codes war as a whole. The alternative is a magical mimicry that avoids those knowledge productions and reduces transparency.
The app says that that information technology is determinate in the context of what war is, and that the affirmative prevents those wars from happening. How can the alternative prevent those wars based on that information exchange from happening?
Our critique is of trying to prevent those wars based off of information exchange.
Wait, so I'm
We
sorry,
are
how
the
does
critique of the thing that you just said the app was.
sure. The Biden wins the 2020 dissad. Your Chung 19 evidence is about criminal justice issue in a 2020 election. It goes on to talk about believing that too many people are in prison. The internals of this card that you have on highlighted is in the context of mass incarceration. How is the app perceived as this liberal CJR policy?
We think it makes a broader descriptive claim about how Trump is specifically using CJR against Biden and uses like Biden's
because
the
Biden's
crime bill.
record on CJR is the 1994 crime bill where he put a
Yes.
bunch of people in jail. That was an illiberal policy, yes?
Like Trump will take anything. Like his executive order that didn't do much. He's been touting that for the last few weeks.
Great. So if you win that the app is a progressive reform to the racial impacts of the criminal justice system, you can win the dissad based on this 1 and C link. That's every example you've given me is that.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Every example you've given is about progressive racial reform to the criminal justice system.
It's not. It's about again, like it's about Trump touting
Every
bipartisan
example
reform
you
over
just gave me
CJR.
was. That's
Like the plan is still like Trump will be like, I'm
don't
going
think the plan is
after like the
protected
rich and the
CJR, but
wealthy. He will use that for other reasons.
Sure, the
You can read
Touchberry
links beyond
evidence.
CJR,
Sure, the Touchberry evidence is in the context of tying appropriations to police reform. What's the evidence that the app's financial deregulation gets tied to appropriations?
Is that the link for?
Yeah, shut down.
It just talks about how police reform and CJR reform as a whole can exacerbate tensions within Congress that makes it impossible to pass a shutdown.
Okay, wait. So
Congress is hammering out differences.
yeah,
They have
the
historically,
Nicholson
empirically.
9-4 evidence that there will be a clean bill, not a continuing resolution. But when there's just like a CR to continue to fund the government.
Eight minutes starting now.
I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect on my iPad, so if I start without me, I'll tell you what.
Stop prep 601. I'm saving now.
Austin, could you hold on for just one moment before you start? There's...
Yeah, sure. Did not save again. I know it should be saved.
Wait, Tim Freehand, did you get the 1NC? Because it says.
All right, I'm back.
Did you get the 1NC? Tim Freehand.
Oh, hold on. Yes, I did.
Okay, because I think the email you put in the chat came up with like a delivery system error.
That was a different email, Rishi. That came up with the error. It was from
Okay. I'll look into it.
Let me know when everyone is good for an order. It won't be pretty long.
I'm good.
Okay, sweet. It'll be the econ advantage, the corporate federalism advantage, T civil, T enact, A-spec, ESR counterplan, con counterplan, shutdown disad, elections disad, critique.
Take a second to prep.
Oh yeah, sure.
Condo.
Yeah.
Either or.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you write that up?
Yeah.
Sweet. 7 seconds used.
Okay, sorry, I'm here. Sorry about that.
5:54. I'll put it in the chat.
My login wasn't working into Classroom Cloud, but
Oh, okay. So I'll give the order again then.
thank you.
Okay. The econ advantage, the corporate federalism advantage, T civil, T enact, A-spec, then the either or procedural, the ESR counterplan, the con counterplan, the shutdown disad, the elections disad, the critique. Everyone good? Sweet. Recession is coming out. The corporate devil is going to power appealing on elections. He solves to continue impacts. Number one solution to expansion that says economic crime, force country to introduce security over new sort of terrorist still in play escalates two and two is emerging attack. US economic dominance, security restriction on emerging and nanobots, otherwise it causes the extinction. That's it. And indeed, a group all of it. Losers return the transition. Terrorist organizations will gain them. Will gain nukes. Will be able to expand to say collapse extinction. And emerging attack turns the transition. Only maintaining economic primacy loss association. The civilian decoupling is coming. Now we're reaching peak consumption. When it can develop tech like nuclear power. Any salvation to mitigate the effects of growth. This key. That's working. Are going sustainable. Fiscal ones aren't absolute. Resources is declining now. Been decom malicious global disaster. Bill 18 day decom cost of American measures all batteries in the country the higher with option battery change marine markets batteries for all the energy costs will be lower access to the outcome of energy costs not ahead. Our society years that their shortest houses also continue also about great efficient tables and trans and house unity. Or if you from one of the same function when so from the way balance the for better than go and anymore no transition. This is one of waiting economic growth and no mindset of Heiberg 15 target people to consumption all this sort of energy use to very hard to understand the threats of the software synergy and matrix the rate which results got to the action of human and major hazard price actually accomplished, and extinction is inevitable. Only growth insane colonization and self-extinction. His strength 16 and the settlement recycling tag. International sustainability says like slowing all the research using other small numbers from the more return. Movements are research and hostage system total many ones that studies all species extinction at a carbide screen over you or purple and another horizontal or energy. US economic decline guarantees war post 18 years ago. Some Hawaii second fortunes and direct complex church way the foreign governments and the for themselves. Yes, Mr. Red, when you say it, just by federals. Corporate rights over federalization, which makes the US lose the blockchain race to impact someone is dollar hedge when the blockchain race is to maintain the strength of the dollar and seed American institutional dominance, which is great power cover. That's rate number 2, China war Chinese organization of blockchain costs Chinese second dominance, which only supposed to be a great attack. That's chronic. It causes extinction. When it says US China war cause nuclear when it starts zeros. When you see Madison says the Chinese blockchain development allows them to run wild and like hack military US military installation which checks overall readiness. When you see 2 doesn't assume the unique environment of digital currency. When I see Casey says several checks. When I see 3 and 4, only we have specific evidence. When I see Matasek and Chronic or blockchain causing unique shifts in the balance of power. When I see 5, we got now for IT civil. Like I said, back the criminal, if they win their interpretation, they want to pay criminal penalties for regulations and counter criminal policing for the asset of force to develop a crime after violence. Streams like see policing for the asset of force to develop a crime. Our violence, there's between the intelligence office agencies that nature placing hashtag for matter of modern towards the other emotion and her agencies city comes to rubber men. We meet there of organs, 700 criminal justice includes all public and providing services and connection with the precision. Only systems risk to change in regular practice. Criminal and civil enforcement have become intertwined in the goals of policing, have them change and NAF innovation. They nearly all policing, state and local policing, and have policing the civil and criminal crime and functional limits. States ESR courts, several OP reasonability campaigning interrupts leads or raise the boundaries to the mass abstract particularly in TNI. Police back that was and enacting means established by legal action. Court actions are included by 13 employment of actions that's limited is not rules in Af ground. They're arbitrarily cuts out all courts. That's what only way to be the ESR kind of find core part of literature and also it's clear to find that not an acting cross-functional moments and or visibility. We meet yesterday as an actor and non-resolution and the arguments for voters and aggressive and are raising the efforts back. Cross-by to the next one. We meet with a reform and don't talk about offense and non-resolution and the arguments are voters. That's all about it. And accelerate stability. I'm also not going to shift out of it, which means that I don't know if this is key to solve it. And the impact is our. Pretty both. It shields like benefit about being perceived as an national follow-on of the rulemaking. Part of the company, it's way to implement the planning. Key words in the books that's makes investment. Number 1 is firms thought no fiat is durable, but I don't understand another policy reversal. Number 2, federal authority deters states from actually new regulatory schemes. And post-company, the states will think the SC will eventually get around developing new regs. And in recent crypto policy, I've seen the company is perceived as long-term law. Another SC flip-flop and Zulog and he did the SC clear choice that's an action certainty and social justice. This is financial innovation and lasting and certainty scheme. Mechanism like an absolutely federal authority. SC will creative new regs. If actually starting the company that's and agent commons for voters, so they have to make a possible offense damage done and economists of voter cause to see shot in time too, which extends in the research. This solves all the problems. Purdue both it shields not better because after the plus size when it's following new amendment and part of the company it's when the after the company the after that election and the funding bill passes it's on intrinsic and they just the time frame play is a trouble model competition. It just has an infinite number of counterpoints that allow the after by some days and makes it possible to trace soft steps and or can solve the advantage. They have a lot of regulations to protect economic growth. The intermittent litigation got solvency to solve the 96 talking amendments and not interested in other parts of the selling question just for the head of the cross allegation these lawsuits going to just trying to feel a little bit concept voter if you said about all some saying it's called by literature damage is on shutdown. Infrastructure thumbs, so we're not able to be able for social and health that's less than one part of it. Under the social network, and citizen more after Robert 28, the House wants a better than the right to be present the other majority and half of them from me or following for the station on the presidential and the plan is immediate with no debate solves the link for them instead of bad. They try to maximize the link to get other politics. That's what solve any education or plan is immediate, which means it's after the clean funding bill and a new cyber escalation Jensen and Banks 18 engage in trying to reduce taxes of our American political or work for the multi-military officers such as whether and all use of cyber safety first with cyber women's amendment for less actions on credible and cyber and election Trump wins now not 9 but there's inside evidence and some sort of control on the churchill power for North Carolina and 2 points in there which will make him more if he could and the plan is super unpopular. No, so 19 strong majority Republicans and independents attending Washington more government regulation will also know one after strongly it's consistent that their use of strong on Wall Street and nothing says for black swans class 19 Trump is last enough on Awareness causes extinction. Or how short there's will come to be in internal scales attention that must not believe in our country the hottest further possible scenarios of much less the human extinction is a rush over more advanced of all over this the how mortality factor 5 to 6 commentaries from my previous specific those in traffic. Okay. Prefer utility only non-arbitrary form of response, then life is of solving all of their impacts. Y'all can't solve A, the case, solve internal stress, self healing, federal corporation, which y'all can't be. That was cross B is their links to all the links from the status quo change. That's when they create structural change order to solve in framework, totally hypothetical desirability of the planet. It's the only interpreter with the right space. They just have certain infinite arbitrary framework, so fallacious, so it's made from one of the office and next fashion. Purdue both, Purdue y'all radical and mimicry isn't textually functionally competitive, and scrapping about balance and metaphysical concepts like the liberal subject is essentialist and wrong ontology. It's not determined polish, Schwartz, anti-foundation. Epistemology and the darks in the epistemology determines politics has define its primary values as insubordinate and fox only small and other ones and also maybe described as structuralist epistemology nor the BNS says whether the decision requires a radical post can be a kind of pick up on my rationality from plus in his belief in the moral equal more with a person's inner norms real about republican practice rather than abstract argument public really ground post and coherent on policy and then there's necessary national team and politics and their total level of center right structural to read off from ontology of politics and such simply office alignment public and natural theories and analysis ideals of abstract philosophy and counterpun. Certainty is key. No certainty and stability and sense of something during promises credible to dimensions how other promises to another person to we actually can make easily pressure now back without pencil and see I can have my future officials and courses on this such as biggest okay. Oberg is wrong that hadn't touched you. 11 century on strong forward the warrant here. This is an three history enable under carbon capacity the lowest closest to the higher teams so able to manage as into level system emergency the vocabulary the operated offers on some hard and from definition and it's emergency values as well as for managing likely levels of activities can explain why Western dimension has all in some cases Yemen or like others in Morocco and Libya. I'm good. They got through better.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start with that. Reasons to reject the team.
Agent counterplans, vague alts, condo, non-resolutional neg theory arguments. Did I say agent counterplans?
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Hey,
That's about it, I think.
Okay. You talk. Oh yeah. Loose nukes. Which terrorists get loose nukes and how?
So man kind of gives two scenarios. Number one is that economic decline causes countries to kind of not be able to fund security of their nuclear arsenals, which means that they're stolen by terrorists. It doesn't give exact proofs, but it says they can be stolen by terrorists. Number two is that countries are so pressured they'll actually sell their nukes, and because they kind of want more money. The terrorist groups.
Okay. So first of all, if economic decline is true, how do terrorists have money?
Because it's because terrorists aren't states, right? They don't have to like pump a lot of money into like kind of
yeah, but
sustain their economy.
Like if a recession happens, I'm also impacted. I'm not the government.
Right, but if terrorists have like kind of floating money beforehand, they don't have to like spend tons of money.
Doesn't have floating money.
The problem is, so like Keynesian economics, right? During economic downturn, states have to push more money into the economy in order to kind of sustain growth and kind of level out the playing field, right? Terrorist organizations do not have to do that because they're not trying to save an entire country. They're just trying to get nukes, or if they steal them, it circumvents that because it just means like they don't have to buy them.
Okay. Sure. Who do they nuke?
Doesn't say. It says they'll have incentives to nuke lots of people. It just says in the abstract kind of usage, just kind of dropped impact. I think it's probably pretty high risk because of that.
Okay. The nanobots thing.
Yeah.
Like, who's making nanobots now?
Burroughs makes an overall claim that things like emerging tech are inevitable. It's only a question of whether or not we can regulate them. We think that unregulated things like nanobots and AI cause extinction, but regulated forms, which the economy is able to create. So Burroughs says that economic growth allows for a powerful international order, which is kind of key to create restrictions on that emerging tech.
Okay, why do countries agree to restrictions?
It's not even like restrictions on certain countries. It's just kind of like international rules about
why if the U.S. is ahead in like nanobot technology,
if there's a strong international order, that means that the U.S. has a lot of leverage to kind of manipulate countries.
Why did U.S. economic growth mean that there's a strong international growth? Or like
Burroughs kind of gives that internally. It says that strong economic growth caused a strong liberal international order. It means that we can do things like regulate that stuff.
Okay. The K. Yeah. So what risk of extinction is too low to act on?
I don't know, man. Bostrom says 10 to the negative 37th and 27th, maybe? Yeah, 27th.
Okay. How do we determine that in debate?
You win. There is a 10 to the negative 27th risk of the F. Good luck.
Thanks.
We'll take prep. Uh, 5:55. Give me a second to save and send the cards.
Where'd you stop prep?
5:55.
Okay.
Okay. The doc is sent. Let me know when we're all good for an order. Cool. The order is the K, the executive counterplan, the con counterplan, the shutdown disad, the 2020 disad, and the second advantage, the one about crypto and blockchain.
Wonder what the one in R is.
I don't know. Radical passivity. You never really do know. Is everyone good? Or does anyone need the order again? Okay. No 2AC cards on Bedroom means that this is an easy negative valid. Our world is a fourth order simulation of what was once reality. Majority is defined by an implicit violence that replaces meaning itself. The world of knowledge seeks to make everything transparent at the level of sign and ineffective not capacity to escape simulation to altitude. That's Paul and Eberg. Winning our thesis through the Bedroom stuff means that we win this in three ways. First is presumption. And for 1AC cannot operate absent the structure simulation. We continue fluent the thesis claim that 1AC politics and progress are illusory concepts that lack meaning. There's no point in investing further in the system. Second is punish them for their world of knowledge. Implicit violence is directly correlated to proliferation of knowledge. Rendering science visible denies the capacity of alterity security, only taking away something they care about, pushing them to abandon the simulation. Third is causality is impossible. Under simulation, nothing meets the desired answer. Once something becomes transparent, it also becomes enigmatic, which decimates absolvency. The first argument, util, we'll go for it as a death link. The fascination with extinction and death is exemplified the problem with the oversaturation of reality. Death is primarily exile because it prevents people from being productive, but death was not always looked down upon. Under symbolic understanding of the concept, death remains a social co-conspirator of life rather than a finite end, but the will of transparency left its even death must be defined by a societal name tag. The name tag is nothing but ramp up killing through things like interventions, preemptive air strike, hard power, and destruction of entire population cultures. Vetting negative not only gets rid of the flawed system the app operates under, but also necessitates a reconceptualization of death. That's atrium networks. Even if they win util, they don't access it in this round because the app doesn't solve anything. That's framework, which means it's a question of priorities and what we actually solve in this round. But we solve under util. That's the alt solvency stuff. The next argument is that the alt fails. No, it doesn't. My entire thing just okay. Thus, our alternatives draw equal duality and possibly dualistic memory takes visually known information as a hostage of its satire policies. The ambivalence of our parody reveals that all Western thought production is just in itself just another parody. Yes, we solve the F. It's not the level of corporate regulations, which is what their argument was, but it's at the level of solving the root cause of war through not trying to impose knowledge or to understand the world on it, which then when they can see the warrants of the Oberkart in the context of Bojard and trying to make the world knowable, they don't get to make an F. Doesn't solve argument. The second argument is that we don't solve the K. Yes, we do. We resolve all of the links, which are explained through the process of trying to know things. We're trying to assert a universal cause of death, which was what understanding of death upon the world and the util stuff, which is just explained. Framework. Why did everything disappear? The role of the judges to endorse the team is the best subjectivity in debate. You do not get to avoid the plans. They overcome the implosive bonds of hyperreality intrinsically tied to debate. The role of the validator in this round is to reclaim alterity as a judge vote for the team the best return on future investments in simulation. Voting yes doesn't mean the ass policies get past our advocacy and shape our individual subjectivities. But prefer interpretation. A points discourse for establishing our analysis. The one solutions to flawed epistemology become possible. B points education. Most of us won't get into politics, but we interact with community every day. Makes our education net better. For turns all their turns their only offense, which is moves 1AC. Third is their desire to protect the base offense. Rest the drive to replace science with provide version cause the exact impulsive violence. Well, also the only other offense that they have is clash. It's only because what we're clashing over. That was the education impact. The permutation do both. If they don't win it, and it fails. First is links for just that clears the inclusion of the plan is bad. The second is the K impact turns the F method. You can't affirm to get using modernity and trying to make the world knowable at the same time, which means the premise of best severance and worse cruelly optimistic severance of ignition and therefore because the plan is focused of NRS because it avoids getting rid of the simulation by just saying perm to bed. Third is the F is incompatible with theoretical passivity. Our offense comes from mimicking the 1AC on their form of the content. They'd never been on the other side of the coin, so mimicking themselves makes zero sense when they were obviously serious about their advocacy before. Permutation to the alt either functions like perm do both or they've explained it differently, which justifies new answers. The ontology doesn't turn in politics argument. The overview answers it. It's also not in the context of Bojard and doesn't assume our prescriptive way of saying the form of the world and knowledge undergirds the world, which is an uncontested truth claim. The Oberkart is wrong. No, it's not, and I'll explain the link here. But keep in mind that their evidence isn't in the context of the world and knowledge. It's just a card that says the war on terror wasn't liberalism wasn't the only cause of the war on terror, which doesn't answer our claim. I'll explain the link here. There's a reason why their scenario for warfare makes no sense. There's no way to understand war by looking at the content of modernity. Only by looking at the form reveals that war has never been rational. War has never will be a question of complicated cryptocurrency innovation or currency wars. Instead, we are reading that liberal rule inevitably leads to unnecessary wars for the sake of maintaining the spirit of humanitarianism. The government will attack that which is noble, whether it's in compliance with their own laws or not. Only the alternative gets rid of that system that mechanizes militarism. Under the simulacra, the wars have been so easy to ways that it's no longer a matter of killing, but of when it's the next staff meeting. That was the Oberg evidence. We'll also go for the information production link. We are of course with being and it is killing us. The presentation of YNC was nothing more than a call for the judge to affirm that they've correctly made part of the world transparent, which leads to implicit violence and resentment when we realize that we can't escape the simulation when we act within science within it. Final link is the solutions link. Competition with China is too valuable a problem to solve. Images in China in opposition with the U.S. are dispersed from agents of the state to keep you up at night and attempt to convince you to invest in the real law to stop them. The problem is that the law has never been real or able to stop them, particularly in the context of national security. The world is a hall of mirror that pretends to be preemptive but ends up being a meaningless post-active attempt to fix problems. Vague alts, the alt wasn't vague. It was explained. Cross-section checks. They should have asked about it. And no impact. Executive counterpoint. Concede permutation debate that we're not going for it. Agent counterpoint's bad. It's a reason to reject the argument off the team, but we'll concede permutation debate. Permutation to the counterpoint means that we don't get agent counterpoints. That means that it's impossible to be negative on this topic, which answers conditionality, but I'll also answer conditionality proper. It's kind of the point of the K is an example of injunction in the debate community, in the debate space theory, of reversibility in the debate space theory, radical dualism, endorsing several worlds to expose the sovereign fiction of debate itself. Also, default to negation theory. The only burden of the negative is to disprove the desirability of the app, regardless of how we do so. It's also key to negative flexibility. Even if you win the world is real, it doesn't prove the app is a good idea. It's not our fault that they read an app that all non-Bayesian scholars also disagree with tests. It's also key to test the app from multiple sides. Their interpretation artificially influence the app. Also logic and limiting context of logical decision making. Logic is key to operationalize benefits debate and negative flux. The app gets a particular focus debate. Key to conduct is key to preserve flexibility, key to fairness, and processing conduct forces the best to answers that maximize classroom efficiency. The shutdown dissent. Concede the thumpers. Any reason to object argument, not the team for all theory. 2020 concede black swans, nothing sticks. Takes out the straight turn. It means that they don't get access to it. Will also extend that Trump loses, and which means that they go for it. We get new cards on it. The counterplan will concede the permit just as the competition or not team for any theory they have here. The advantage. Extend 1 and C1. There's no internal link between cryptocurrency innovation and U.S. China war when 1. Their evidence does explain what innovations occur, how those innovations lead to U.S. crypto superiority worldwide, especially when their evidence says that we're already 5 years behind China, which means they have to remedy that gap. Second is they don't have evidence that closes the gap between China and having better cryptocurrency and U.S. technical supremacy around Taiwan, which is what their impact scenarios in the context of blockchain scenario makes no sense. First is both the U.S. and China both have blockchain now, which is what their evidence says, and have the capacity to forge important documents. So through that blockchain exists, and it's not clear how it would be innovated in a way that without the SEC that matters for their impact. Second is they haven't evidence that anyone in the U.S. has instead to quote weaponized blockchains or what that looks like. They don't have an example of how our blockchain development would stop China from being able to lie on their own, or how the SEC would regulate in a way that matters for the impact, or what the worst scenario is that's just predicated off of Bitcoin, off of blockchain, and not China. The currency wars. Extend 1 and C2. There's no currency wars. Beijing has no intention of sparking one. The one drop compared to the U.S. dollar ensures developments in the future straight from isolation. That's Inman prefer. It cites the chief expert economist at the People's Republic Bank. Quotes the Chinese government. The China war scenario. No, it doesn't make sense. First is interdependence. The regime's legitimacy depends on growth. It also aims to integrate itself into a liberal order. Second is nuclear deterrence. That stops low-level conflict from escalating. That's Yutong, especially true when their impact scenario is in the context of Taiwan. That's their Cronin card. It's the only scenario that the card gives, so it's the one that you default to. And there's no reason why the 1AC is provided no reason why China would use nukes on a tiny island nation with minor disagreements instead of just using smaller conventional missiles or diplomacy, which wouldn't escalate. Also, no China war. China will back down. Costican 16 years. China relations are not a cost of civilization war. Is not a problem. Neither U.S. or China nor is spoiling a fight. The priorities are both external, internal, and non-external. Most vital Chinese interests is in the preservation of CCP rule. China leaders are talk but are not reckless. No president can order the national move, which is not for wars. There will be episodes, but narrower than sensationalist analysis. And no China war. Rud 15. Neither side is interested in the Institute for flaring of regional conflict from the Chinese side would upset the agenda of their number one priority to transform the economy and military realists in the PLA. We know full well they would lose their very sobering elements within the Chinese analysis. Say America has no particular interest in war. Market, no particular interest in war.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. How does the alt reconceptualize death? What does it look like?
How does it reconceptualize death? Well, we just don't forward util as a view or extinction reps in the debate.
What's the alternative then?
Not forwarding extinction reps in the debate space.
Right. Util is an ethical theory. I'm asking what the alternative ethical theory you're forwarding.
Oh. We think that through the process of symbolic exchange, we can decide whether or not stuff matters based off of whether it's real or not. And nothing's real, so only things that don't pretend to be real are real.
Okay, this kind of seems so. We cannot know anything. All we can know is that we do not know anything. The Socrates argument. Like, how do you know the root cause is true if we don't know anything?
Well, it's not as broad as that. I did contextual examples in all of the link analysis about why the world of knowledge is bad.
Right. How do you know any of those examples are true in a world where we don't know anything is true?
Our authors, and we know that some stuff.
Why does that not mean that the app is all true?
So, like, the argument that Baudrillard makes in all the link debates, which is based off of contextual impacts, based off of all that implicit violence, is predicated off of the violence that results within the simulacra as a result of trying to know things, which we can know. The problem is we can't assign causality from predictive claims about how the world would
You also
work
have
if we made
impacts. You're making
normal
predictive claims. You're saying this
we made
causes
those
this.
predictive
How are you
claims
not
based
also?
off of trying to know things? And those trying to know things are in the context of the app. It's
That's
not just
fine.
knowing things is always bad. It's like knowing things in the context of the app is bad.
The stuff about, like, it's a framework. Reclaiming austerity. How does the app do that? What does it look like? What's the burden for the app?
Reclaiming austerity?
We don't get away with the plan. I have reclaim austerity. Maybe I misheard it.
It's
how does the app win
alterity.
under okay?
Yeah,
how does the app
alterity.
win under your interpretation?
You could not do things that try to make the world knowable.
Yeah, what does that look like?
But also, we
how
don't
does
think
the app,
that
how does the
role
app
of
prove we
ballot,
don't do that?
The role of the ballot in this round might be predicated off of okay, but the role of the judge is just to endorse the team with the best subjectivities in debate. We think the reclaiming alterity is one way to do it, and the way that should matter for this round.
How do we determine subjectivities?
But I mean, you could just prove that your subjectivities are more valuable
Yeah, how
by
do we do
beating
that?
the links and winning the AF is good. Prove the AF is ethical. Prove that your invocation of all the things that you said in the 1ACU is good.
How do we do that? If we win the thesis of the advantage, why does it not do that?
Because you haven't proven that it is ethical. I mean, if you win the advantage and win that the K is wrong, you win.
Okay, that's fine.
You just have to defend your reps.
The stuff about Rosansamon, why is it bad? Why do we link to it?
Because when we think within the terms of the simulacra, we can foreclose ourselves to the possibility of escaping without it. The 1AC, we think, was an attempt to make a part of the world knowable and get the judge to sign off to say, hey, we think you're right about this. You correctly made a part of the world visible.
Not saying that you are right about some things?
Well, it's not trying to make a universal claim about the world, which the AF would.
Why is that true? Why is the AF doing it? Why is the
you
neg
said
not doing
that
it?
if we do the plan, something good will happen, and then made a bunch of discursive claims
You've
about
made
how China
impact
and the
claims about
world operates.
Rosantamon, which are links to like a linear link. The AF isn't bad.
Sam, I'm gonna take like a second to prep. I'm sorry. $432. I'm setting it up. It's just the first advantage. Okay, it should be set. I'll put the time in the chat, sir. All right. Is everyone good? Yeah, for sure.
Good. You're asking for good for the order.
Sorry, the order is just the first advantage, the econ advantage.
Okay.
Austin, you good? Okay. Everyone good?
Really quick, Bruce, you mute yourself on Discord.
Yeah, I got you. All right. It's tried after degrowth. Overshoot causes climate change, destroys soil, water, and forest functioning, undermines the pollination and pest control. The combined effect overwhelms the ecosystem, resilience, flips growth through rising climate pressing extinction. That's the books evidence. It turns the second advantage. The first is they concede that growth contributes to aggression. The imperative for expansion leads to states for fighting each other over limited resources, and growth funds war chests, which causes conflict permanence by increasing the expected value of minerals and games. That's the hot evidence that was dropped. Second is China proves their impact is backwards favorable concrete condition for cooperation, producing the divided visionary pieces of what leaders are cooperating in exchange for existing economy, the domestic insecurity, territorial disputes, more likely to compromise regime insecurity, best explained by China step 2. Compromise Chinese leaders are more willing to offer concessions by incentives that conflicts a single toughness is balance the most pressing threat internal challenge to gain direct assistance and martial resources for domestic priorities, not defensible. Sir, the recognition that diverts the resources from security, increasing the cost of poor relations, the decoupling inevitable stuff. It's not inevitable because the app shifts. The loose nukes for transition. First is cross six was an absolute crush. First, there's no reason why or how they get the loose nukes. The only argument was that terrorists buy the loose nukes because they won't hold it. First is obviously advisors in the U.S. will check it. Second, in a world where the U.S. can't afford to hold their own security things, they would just disassemble the nuclear weapons. They obviously wouldn't try to sell it. Third is terrorists can't afford it because there's growth globally that goes. It's global economic recession, which means that even in that world, terrorists can't afford it. Force them to read specific evidence about why they buy nuclear weapons. So the emerging, the decoupling inevitable stuff is not inevitable, the app shifts it, but I'll do the sustainability debate here. Sustainability is wrong there. Physical caps on consumable resources, environmental effects will cut off the access to commodities. Their evidence is unwarranted optimism. That's the books to cope amendments. Two framing issues for assessing sustainability. First is cognitive bias, means you should earn negative market solutions. Compass, Wallace and Wells, 19, the cognitive bias towards the perception automation provides I describe the precedent for market forces infallible, meaning that trusting economic system uncovered by regulation would solve warming as naturally as they had solved the inequality, justice, and conflict. Second, innovation is not inherently gamble, but waiting makes collapse works. Martinez and Iglesias and Garcia 12. The tech is not unpredictable. Is not predictable. One can believe or not that it's all. Nobody can know the policy. Tech is not the best provisional. One can shift limits temporarily. The result was always collapsible due to delay. Growth is unstable versus inevitable. Unpredictable shocks. Unpredictable shocks. Lecter. At all 16, the economic economy is accelerating at limits imposed by the fundamental physics. Unexpected potential disruptive events for Fukushima and the financial crisis. And hopes the crisis can trade globally. High tech, high speed trading make exchange in milliseconds caused by the flash crashes. No identifiable root cause to the spark crash. So take out the GPS. The modern computing centers depend on the energy. The stars are a floor or Ebola. The grid. We don't understand it anymore. The interconnecting is certainly requires from short-term thinking to sustainable resilience triggered by economic incentives. The no transition arguments. I'll group them both together, but I'll answer the first one here. The other states won't do it. Obviously, the U.S. class spills over to global econ. Literally, they can't say this when their first card from the first advantage says that severe recession now goes global. None of their argument assumes COVID, which is a global pandemic, and the U.S. recession obviously spills over elsewhere. The transition independently, I'll answer all their mindset shift arguments. The transition is possible. Growth is the only thing that's blocking radical movements for gaining critical mass shock is the only thing that enables buy. That's lower back evidence. Even absent mindset shift, transition will be forced. College, 18 other wars seem driving history for surprises debate on voluntary growth versus the more probable events force reduction for perfect by crashes and misleading as the growth falls cost become unbearable. Transitions and continued growth that can emerge from unforeseeable the reaction to adaptation and political struggles. Such transitions do not have to be in the name of degrowth. Life under growth. Degrowth is our growth is already national from many threats. More with climate change, overshooting growth, planetary boundary, and voluntary anti-growth may well lead to end of state continual economic depression. Supports late now proof transition is possible. Actually, skip that. The only word that their argument talks about is biology and not psychological bias, but children age is proof. That cause anti-national is wrong in many caps. The word does not exist in nature. There's no group. What is natural restriction on expansion impulses not lasting if it goes to natural. Why would economists spend their time trying to understand its origin? Innovation does not actually happen. They involve reflection and collective action. Growth was not invented in the 30s. The space call argument. Space call causes intercolonial wars with ETs. That cause extinction comic. 18. The life can become existence. There was no life before. It is very probable that Earth is once a once in a universe event. It's very highly probable that it's coming to existence elsewhere. Our galaxy might be full of even highly challenging technologically advanced life. We will come into contact with extraterrestrial life. The same amount of human fragmentation is inevitable. Earth can become a problem in your group dynamics. High growth, the perceived benefits of armed conflict increases the preference that go against the goals and the preferences of humankind. Extraterrestrial intelligence can be hostile. There might be representing tremendous security risk. Hostile intelligence may prefer humankind not to exist. Every second of delayed decolonization outweighs. Source 18. The one now ponder how much entropy is being that could be realized in aspect condition marked by amounts of pain. Every second of delayed colonization should be seen as immensely desirable. The longer the delay, the better. The econ decline causes war. There's the growth stuff of the war chest stuff was competed, but econ decline causes wars. First, the stats analysis from 109 rival data shows that conflict with crisis likely to terminate during its downturn. Second, spending decline causes austerity measures prevent high spending for national security. That signals an aversion to conflict escalation norms. Third is empiric. Even the most hawkish leaders in income military spending and aggression. Fourth is ideology. Decline creates institutional flexibility, which undermines the nationalist animus towards productive leadership change. That's the clear evidence. The defense, the warming defense outweighs the app, and it's possible. And warming constitution. Miller McDonald, the most fundamental debate between human extinction collapse. The question of human extinction is totally about uncertainty, or the most adaptive, and one may be inclined towards the latter. We never lived outside of here. Condition ice melt, sea level rise, and double industrial agriculture is dropping massive habitat loss. Extinction, the collapse force of vital carbon sinks are preventing sense of reliving the sixth mass extinction event. What I do know is that regardless of the answer, regardless of the answer.
5:53. Sorry now.
Already started.
Step prep. 233. There are cards. I'll send them out. Sent. It will be case in the order of corporate federalism, then the econ advantage, then the K. Yeah, this way. Have people gotten it? Westy, are you good? Cool. The app incentivizes state creation of corporate markets, key to end federal overregulation of Bitcoin and blockchain tech. Otherwise, the good of which sees dollar hedge and cause grace and warfare independently goes nuclear on the line by line. Yes, it's key to blockchain evidence. Our evidence indicates the key in a post-COVID world where a digital currency will be one of 2, 3 scenarios for blockchain tech causing Chinese expansion. One is espionage against behind our evidence to using the blockchain technology. Second is security protocols. They can find our security protocols and use them against us. Third is data manipulation. All they can do all of those things without us ever knowing what they are. They'll eat any of those 3 internal links. We're conceded, which means and yes, there is a risk of war. This dollar hedge causes war alliances converge against you. It's key to keeping people on our side. Groups that are trying to war stuff. It's not in the context of misconduct, which is the last half of the current evidence. CAC is key because it otherwise internal links. If we don't know what the military technology they have when either we or they will overreact. Go to econ. The app solves econ collapse is on the brink now through 2 external impacts. One is caused LAO collapse. Use econ strength is key to at least ally pro conflict between Russia and China and is an impact they've conceded. The emerging tech impact, which otherwise cause extinction, that's the data which independently outweighs. It's the only impact that actually has evidence indicating that cause extinction circumvents all their nuclear war defense. They read at the very bottom because stuff like nano warfare and geology and AI, which definitely also turns all of the transitions up because it's key to technology, which could cause which would solve any of the impacts. Second is loose nukes. That's span collapse, cause terrorist rogues and acquisition, miscalculation, and great power war. Answers all the econ decline defense, but their answers are not good. It's just a laundry list of things that it doesn't assume, but they don't have any evidence on this. You should assume that the terrorists would be able to acquire nuclear weapons through security lapses and good data, just sustainability debate. Technological enhancement drive decoupling across every metric. That's Bailey. A's global fertility rates peak and begin declining. Turns overconsumption. B is increasing ag productivity. Lower farmland water uses cause reforestation. Acts the carbon sink. C nuclear fast reaction. Make thousands of years. The energy supply. D to manufacturing substitution. Absolute decoupling. Solve resource shortages. Cap sustainable profit motive. Drives tech innovation. Makes resources infinite. It's the only way to solve environmental collapse. Make 18. 19 is poor country good. Which institution will improve AI. After the force of climate. 30 printing generates no waste. Machine learning. Determinate substances. To reduce emission, more efficient technology, and shift away digital tools, increase efficiency, data center, champion, dematerialization, nuclear version. They say biases, but trust yourself. Selecting for bias results in worst forms of bias. Jasky, another bias. They made sort of direct evidence bias, bias, part of it, insertion, notes, applied to own ideas, and other times selected than logical quality detect must be stupid. And they say the innovation stuff, but it's a question of waiting for nuclear war caused by the downturn in LA. Turns the transition now, more on the transition stuff. No mindset shift, backlash, turn solvency. Rishi can see that other countries don't transition, which turns it in. But chance 19, new growth, we're enjoying support at these parties, union business association, international organization, pretty go say modest at least, discourses, given a common sense at least support neoliberal projects that they don't result in weakened capital mentioned for financial place growth and dramatic conditions to make it equal to condition with population and capital here programs for the capital expansion extend space wars no intergalactic war. They consider the internal link that it solves all possible extinction impacts from Earth. No intergalactic war certification to international warfare oxymoron logical nightmares setting military exports and shelters planetary system at purple advantage workers back to market away to go after undefended resource hardly viable motivation and so warfare and no space called we're alone studies proof same all 18. It's not like the civilians destruct the same barrels suitable distance for enough to make an empty universe puzzle like Navy and quite like one we got for the Fermi paradox of firm observation experimentation of all opinions given certain metric variance and wording observation. The focus should be the low probabilities likely. Go to K. At the top, I'll answer all 3 of the framing issues. First one, there's no reason why information is this way. For context check, they don't have an articulation why this doesn't also apply to them just as well. Second, the punishment stuff, you should punish them for voting out for conditionality when we don't have value. There's no reason why we should be punished, not them. Third subpoint, I answered above. Extend utilitarianism. Life come first. That's part 1. Is life is a precondition to valid life. Extinction forecloses the ability to make any material improvements or just change the way that the information economy functions. Now, which means they can't solve any of their impacts. Second is uncertainty magnified in the context of where their only answer is the death doesn't really exist in the simulation. Even if you're 90% sure they're right and extinction is less important, that's still a large amount of of uncertainty vote out. Their only answer here is this is a link to the COLI impact trend that based on utilitarianism, the impact on the alternative cases and impact turn to it is impact on productivity is better capitalism is good than any individual increase in productivity in the context that I did the reading of the app or in debate is necessarily good which means in the context of framework, extended framework, external interpretation, the app is the way the plan versus the status quo competitive counter anything else is impossible to predict. There are an infinite number of things that could say should come first. Argument is grounded in the resolution, which is most predictable. Predictable status point is key to fairness because that could never defend any minute score up to the 1AC. Fairness always all of their standard debate is framed or a competitive incentive to win, which means anything detrimental that should be rejected. And fairness is the only impact that we remedied with the ballot voting never make us better people because arguments are based on winning strategies, not ethics voting. Can remedy the harms in this debate by the next the role of the ballot from a role of the ballot and the role of the judge from classics. But the fairness framing argument answers all the discourse because all represented in debate making as actually better people over strong. There's liberalism nor semiotics describes where the impact can't explain Western intervention happened in Iraq when not Myanmar, which answers all the links in the all solved case arguments. Extend check liberalism and a will to knowledge can't explain what words occur useless intervention and conflict are improbable under their thesis in the context of interventions like Yemen, Iraq, and Libya. They also link to a will to knowledge that was crossing and taking out better education via frameworks, thinking out the different ways their thesis can explain the app are examples of will to knowledge. And a will to knowledge is good in the context we have knowing different ways the conflict occur less and more actively combat and prevent the basic info dissuasive stuff. But it's definitely new. Well, you didn't find it in the one and see. It's also a contradiction if you can understand and vote for it necessarily disproves the word, which could actually the word absent significant anti-war actions improves the information with clear goals works. Sometimes which is inside the 1 year Schwartz evidence is that and the link to it the first link is impact turned by Schwartz, which they functionally conceded, which only said it doesn't link them liberals is key and generally improves society as a whole. Proves its impact turned to all the ideas of living simulation. Anything else?
It's fine.
Yeah, the second impact is obviously impact turned by productivity, which we went on the cap load. Then where impact then productivity is necessarily good, even in the context of individual links or in the context of our individual actions in the round.
You have 432.
Good. Starting now. Sending out a card now.
It's sent. I just sent it out. It's more than one card. I can send it in a doc if you want, but
That'd be good.
yeah, I got you.
Some more Baudrillard impact cards.
Yeah, we just really realized we were behind on the framework cards, so need proof that the app doesn't happen in the Judge Votes app.
Yeah, I sent it. It's in a doc now.
Everyone good for an order?
Yeah.
The order is whatever advantage D does on, so advantage 1, and then the K, and then the other advantage. So corporate crimes or whatever, that one.
Corporate federalism.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Freehand.
Are we all good? Cool.
It's tried out for G Earth. Every shoot causes climate change, destroys soil, water, and forest functioning, undermines pollination, pest control, the combat effort, overall ecosystem resilience, flips growth through rising commodity prices and causes extinction. You should prioritize it's the only irreversible impact. There's only a percent level of power wars contained in intervening actors, checks, that fucking codes, the top level impact stuff. They've conceded war chest in every speech of the debate so far. The Han evidence says that growth contributes to aggression. The imperative for expansion leads states to fight each other and limited resources, and growth causes war chest, which causes a conflict proneness by increasing technology in aggressive ways and expanding the expected value of military engagement, which turns their text laws, LIO stuff, and the other advantage by increasing the risk of war when you add stuff. That's the only conceded impact scenario in this round, and leads to short-term aggression because of the increased spending in warfare. The second argument about loose nukes, they conceded all of Rishi's answers about why loose nukes are impossible because they don't have any evidence that suggests how terrorists would get them, who's selling, how they have the money in a global recession, or what that looks like, or why they use them, none of which are answered, which means that they don't have access to the scenario. The sustainability debate should frame the rest of your decision. If we win any single war and it proves that there are limiting factors to make collapse inevitable, takes out their terminal impact framing, you should air neg because their evidence is unwarranted optimism and motivated by private interest. If we win, growth is unsustainable. There's 0% risk of an offense and an offensive reason to vote affirmative. Worst case scenario is a neg valid on presumption. Several sustainability warrants. First is cognitive bias. They can see that you are predisposed to market solutions, so you should overestimate all of your sustainability warrants. That's the Wallace evidence. Their Yudkowsky card or whatever card they read doesn't talk about this particular bias, so it's irrelevant in this round. Don't trust yourself. If we win, the bias is real. Second is innovation is inherently a gamble. It only works in the short term, but exacerbates overshooting collapse now, reduces the lock in price. That's Martinez. Third is in unpredictability. Systemic shocks as economies grow, they become less efficient and more susceptible to systemic shocks. Accelerating markets make and things like disease make it's inevitable, particularly in the age of COVID. Fourth is financialization. Fly consumption demands increase the complexity to maintain growth rates. This makes the economy structurally geared towards collapse for two reasons. First, it makes all production interdependent, which leads to massive domino effects. Second is every stage of production becomes less efficient, which demands more energy. Five is finite resources. Their evidence doesn't assume a declining energy yielded for energy invested. It's just unwarranted optimism about tech will maybe solve warming. To maintain the economy, we'd have to get beyond 100% efficiency, which is not how science works. They, including peak oil. Six is warming. Increasing warming by 1 degree reduces growth by 1%. 1%. If we win that decoupling is impossible, it means that collapse is inevitable. Seven is structural issues with human population growth. Declining agriculture and sperm count means there's a fundamental carrying capacity. Eight is anti-capitalist movements. They will collapse capitalism and growth, but if we win the transition stuff, but they are slow and fast. Growth trades off the no mindset shifts argument. Yes, mindset shift. Their evidence doesn't assume that it's a forced choice instead of people deciding to go away from from malls one day. That matters because all of our evidence is about how a economic shock would prompt those people into shifting, which is what our evidence is about, and why a short-term recession now is good. The Lorbach evidence is great that says that a market may collapse makes people disinvest in growth because nobody thinks it's good for them, but collapse now avoids all of their offense because it reduces loss locking prices. The sustainability debate makes the transition wars inevitable. It's only a question of how advanced the weapons are and how high the locking price is. New tech is emerging to undermine the MAD and deterrence. The only collapse now stays off the worst wars. And if people become more ingrained, there's a higher probability of transition wars. That's analysis that gives conceded. It also takes out the transition stuff and we don't win defense on it. But the collapse key arguments get conceded will also extend the other two cards on transition, Collis and the Collis card and whatever the other one was that talked about children. They both provide the scientific backing for why there is an incentive to transition in the world of an economic collapse. The last thing that I'll do before going down in space call is that econ decline doesn't cause war, and there's no transition wars. Sorry, I forgot to say. No, on the no mindset shift stuff that we did answer the other countries don't switch argument. First is the U.S. collapse spills over to global economy. That was their first card, and the other the thing it doesn't assume COVID, which means that international relations are tied up. Both are conceded. I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There's not a high burden of proof. Yeah, that should be good. The space call stuff. Space call was basically dropped. It's another reason why growth is bad. Their only answer was that we are alone to die. It's a pretty tough hill to die on. Space call guarantees that we come into contact with hostile extraterrestrials. They drop that interdynamic group, intergroup dynamics within humans also causes conflict with it and guarantees the space off the aliens turns their space force impact. That's to internally saying intergalactic war, which outweighs every impact in this round. No impact is an inevitable. Space call relies on growth. If it isn't inevitable, then you don't sell space call because all your arguments are based off of recessions and their own evidence can see that's plausible, but our evidence is more predictive. However you say that word proves. Leska 18. This do not believe in aliens. May have a bit more backup. A pair of researchers in Harvard is saying Anamaya, fluke or solar system. They were the very first interstellar body is a spaceship, a fully operational probe sent to intentionally to Earth by the vicinity of an alien civilization. Is a light sail and advanced technological equipment propelled by solar radiation. It's not much of a stretch. Light sails have been designed to construct by range of civilization. Consensus of scientists, short term and most scientists will support the optimistic estimate of probability cleaning up to life an Earth-like planet around a sun-like star with a larger mass, brain mass, and the potential for technical civilization are not rare results. Market not rare results.
How much prep?
233.
233 starting now.
Yep.
Two cards. I'll send them now. If the body is fine, then that's where I'll send them. Should be sent. Everyone good? Let's see.
Sorry, did you say you were sending cards?
Yeah. Oh wait, and I didn't say the order.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
thought.
It'll just be advantage 1. Actually, advantage 1, advantage 2, I guess. Everyone good? Sweet. You'll go out on extinction outweighs its tried effort space called Tracy Collins. Extinction is inevitable due to impending asteroids, accidents, super volcanoes, plagues, nuclear wars, etc. Any chance of space walk can solve it as a reason to vote out of every other planet we go to literally decreases the risk of an extinction of it being able to take out all of humanity. The theorem are just impact units for us. It proves that extinction is inevitable, but it's solved by space walk because other less likely to cause extinction of humans are in multi-planetary species. Only we can solve our Marvin says that economic growth is key to reduce transportation costs in space, which will make it become widespread to be effective. If the aliens of if their turn is true, SETI means we're screwed. That there's no reason why space are uniquely signals aliens that come and invade us, and we're alone. Studies proves that all 18 is likely to just the universe that does more than enough to get universe of all those any quite like we have the from station identity and from station station operators and the sensitivity about their and from station the likely we take a carbon and certain person plans by power distortions. We find a reason galaxy in the we find a station of body to be alone galaxy mass Mars over here 7.6% or suddenly and notice our travel means no aliens are right in Oman 18 and in Oman Reagan 18 a financial concept in the relation and it's like a station as I know solution also the sense of the CI sure otherwise but also none of their impacts to say that those conflicts cause extinction. The inner colony war stuff they can see a war on circuit it says that human colonies have no incentive to go to war together which also says that they're so spread out that there's actually no way there's no reason for them to because tons of resources are close to all of them and independently the nuke war stuff we can see it in the war of the nuke war it doesn't cause the extinction. It's only a question of extinction events which only we access the sustainability economic growth sustainable value and Brooks have multiple warrants. The number one goal for utilities peak now and will fall which reduce consumption as states get through link turns over consumption because it means the growth it's key to solve for all also link turns and their low sperm counts are because it proves that low sperm counts are good but the economic growth doesn't cause extinction but it's also overconsumption because and number 2 is growth causes more fishes from and water which will be replaced by reforested areas which has an independent warming impact, and number 3 is growth causes development of nano manufacturing, which has an infinite amount of resources of literally any kind, which means that there's no risk of any shortage of anything because we can always create more and more things and extend warning or make it gets more warrants in machine learning senses will allow us to use only the best type of substances to create things like green tech and technology, which actually increases their effectiveness and it means we can deter conflict. If we win the growth sustainable, then you vote out. It means the growth is able to solve all of our impacts and there's the gains of efficiency that solve the reason why growth is bad. Not the systemic shocks weren't no financialization. Boom and bust cycles that have continued for centuries. Bust cycles are always shorter than boom cycles. So the growth is still sustainable. The production and interdependence of interstate trade stalls because they're always in intensive trade within smaller blocks of trade, which means even global causes collapse. And there's those smaller blocks of states that are insulated from broader collapses. The bias debate. It's in new calcium. Who doesn't near enough here. We don't need also specifically evidence to their biases because it's about the introduction of a bias making you too biased to overcome. You should all bias because actually because all goes up. The mindset shift. There's no mindset shift when they are conceded one of our chance and says that institutional incentives to maintain growth and big business, governments, unions, etc. mean there's no way to class literally all the barriers are reinforcing economic growth being seen as good, but also all things about people wanting to growth. Number one are disproven by empirics, but number 2, even if people want to, institutions will just body them because essence will just be taken out by broader institutional governments, business unions, etc. And answer all that stuff. The 2 and are also all the 2 are answers to emerging tech are new. The block completely dropped, which means we have an external emerging tech impact, which means it's an external impact that we solve off of extinction 4. They have no extinction impact in the 2 and even if the 2 and says it, there's we conceded nuclear war doesn't cause the extinction, which is all the warrants that they go for, and emerging tech causes extinction. 1AC takes and nanobots cause extinction by killing themselves infinitely, eventually enveloping and destroying the world. 1AC Burrow says that economic growth is key to create regulations on nanotech via a strong international order. The plan is key to solve economic economic catastrophe is coming out of the structural factors, not COVID. When you see breaking with contaminants, lack of corporate risk taking caused by regulations, it makes impossible. Extinction categorically ways you can't win and infinite hyper to find it. One extinction is inevitable. It's inevitable, and in the disclosure, which means any chance that you have solved it is a reason to vote after which means the only we access to try our diaphragm. Try our diaphragm. All the stuff about class now being key that doesn't apply if when any standard voting warrant, especially like infinite resources because any class that happens, we can always just spam more and more resources to suffer any negative effects of it. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're the only ones that have conceded. We have a conceded extinction impact in emerging tech. We have answered all of their aliens arguments. They have no extinction impact because we've conceded nuclear doesn't cause extinction, which is what the 2R goes for. It's GG. Good debate.
Good debate.
Hard doc, I'm guessing.
Good debate. The neg card doc is sent.
Hey, just to be clear, Westminster, this second card in the card dock was marked at results, right? Very rare results.
Just let me check.
The last two in our card.
I don't understand. Where did you look at?
It was very rare results.
Perfect.
After card dock is sent.
Okay, Westminster, also to be clear, this ozone scenario was never read in the debate. That's in your neg card doc, right?
Did I put the? It's the ET. Are you talking about for the?
Like you've included like a launches scenario that you did not read. So people
Is it
should
under-
not consider that in their decision because you did not read it.
Is it the under the space call stuff? Sorry, I must have.
You stopped at the Torres stuff. You did not read Morton or Hunt. It's in the neg doc. So
I mean, yeah, I didn't read it. Sorry, I didn't put it in there.
cool, you're good.
It looks like we're in.
Austin is not here, but he'll be here in just a second.
Cool.
I can't. I think you're muted, Scott.
Oh, I didn't know you're back. Sorry. I thought
It's okay.
I was waiting for you to get back, and I was talking to someone else. Okay. Congratulations to both teams reaching the semifinals. Decisions of 3-0 for the AF. So I think I think it's like I think the problem is that there's kind of like only offense on space call and not defense, and I think it probably like solves for warming and war. Then there's also no reason that war is necessarily gonna like. There's not really a reason that I don't even know if there's like uniqueness. I don't think there's necessarily going to be a nuclear war absent like degrowth, because and warming. I don't know if there's like, even if it's true that tech can't solve. I think the AF is like, I think there's a good chance it could, and even if it's just kind of needlessly optimistic and the result of our biases or whatever, it's like trust machines. I think that I'm not sure that in the near term, these events are going to happen so fast that like space call couldn't like help us. So I think that for me, it's kind of like, I think that the space colonization, I think is possible. It may be undesirable, but it seems to be a way to avoid the impacts of like a nuclear war or warming, especially because those aren't necessarily like at the brink. And I think that so I think it's it makes sense to like to try, and I do think that the AF is ahead then. So then I guess I have to look at the offense. So I think that I don't quite understand. Like there's an argument about like even if we're alone, like there's still some kind of like space war because of the card says fragmentation is like highlighted. I didn't bother to read the rest to see if this is mentioned something in the 2NR. So I'm not even sure like I really understand exactly like what that argument is like about like why group dynamics means that there's still some kind of war if we try to colonize space. So I think it really just kind of comes down to that. I think so I think that like we're probably not alone. It's probably unlikely that we're the only thing in in the universe, but as far as like our observable universe, right, the odds are are good, and that in 50-50 that we're the only ones in our galaxy, because like the Fermi paradox and the AF cards are just better and are more specific, and it would also be hard to travel to these other places, and because of that, the incentives would be towards defense and any kind of interstate. So I just think the risk of it's very low. And I think that so I think it's space colonization, kind of like all of the other neg impacts kind of become AF impacts then, because the only way it seems to avoid them is tech. Other tech innovations make them kind of less likely and push them. And like you read car evidence that says we can only delay it, we can't like completely solve it, but delaying it enough till we can colonize space seems like to be the best bet given like all the arguments presented in the round.
Okay. So, I mean, just kind of on an impact level, I voted mostly on Scron and Tate as impacts. Eleanor, for some reason, you didn't include the 1AC Tate card in the card doc, which was actually a pivotal piece of evidence.
That's my bad. Yeah, I made it. I'm sorry.
Well, then you're a terrible person. Anyway, but you obviously talked about it in the 2AR. Now, to be fair, like your 2AR was very hard to understand. You were damn near impossible to flow. And I think that I was probably leaning neg coming out of the round just because I understood the negative arguments just a little bit more cogently. Ultimately your evidence, I think, cleared it up. And what I did vote on was some things that I did really understand, which was that I think that the AI impact is vital in Tate. I don't think that any of the questions of DDEV ever respond to this, and I think it's conceded pretty much throughout, and that is an extinction level impact. I think that I'm buying, and I thought there was enough defense in the 2AR on the SETI impact that worked for me. One is the negative cards. The negative cards assume that SETI is like in proximity to the Earth, and which means colonization is pretty much irrelevant. If they're going to go to war with us, they're just going to do it now, which is kind of a uniqueness claim that I think Austin was trying to make in the 2AR, I think. But anyway, I thought ultimately there was enough defense on this that I thought the question of AI and emerging technology being good, being necessary to be regulated to avoid like a Grey Goo disaster that Scran and Tate both substantiate, I think was enough of a terminal impact for me to vote on. Sort of the nitty gritty. The mindset shift, I actually vote affirmative on. I thought the callus, the way, the angle you went with the callus evidence on forced transition, I thought was a good idea. But I don't think you had a response to Buck Hansen in the 1AR, which is that like there are elitist groups that would elite groups that would check back on that, and that the neoliberal order would rule the day ultimately and prevent these transitions, forced or otherwise, from ever taking place. I also don't think that the callus evidence is. I actually really don't remember the second card that much, but the first one is the one you leaned on, and I don't think that card was quite as good as you want it to be. Like, I understand the argument; it's a good argument, but I think the evidence needs to substantiate it a little bit better. I don't really know how the bias stuff implicates it. Like, it's fairly general stuff about like, I don't believe them because they just think that neolib's great, blah blah blah. Like, I don't really understand how that necessarily takes out the specificity of the affirmative reasons as to why there's sustainability, why the tech solves, why there's good things that come out of the growth mindset, blah, blah, blah. I think these cards are all, pretty good for the most part, but I just don't think they answer tech regulations necessarily, which is really what the ultimate impact is. The question of sustainability, I just think they're reading better cards than you are ultimately. Like, their cards are really good about how we can push the boundaries of what sustainability is, whereas the negative cards tend to define it very narrowly as to what's possible and what isn't. And that their argument is that, no, we can create new levels of sustainability. We can raise the ceiling that can at least keep things going. And even if, like, I don't buy, which to me checks back on this argument that you're trying to make, is that sustainability alone is a presumption level argument. And I don't think it's absolute. I think there's just a way that there's some growth could occur, and that provides some regulation for the AI technologies that accesses the terminal impact that I ultimately vote on. Mr. Ellis?
I think that not having any defense to space call was like pretty rough. I think that probably the best way to resolve that particular situation is using some of the other sort of like claims that you've made in the debate as forms of defense to a lot of their space call stuff. I think probably the easiest way to do this would have just been to say, like, have a much bigger push on this question of whether or not we can actually count on emerging technology, these cards that are kind of red in the 1NR, as a means of accessing their sort of like space call impact. I think that kind of like fundamentally undercutting the space call stuff at the internal link level there probably would have helped go a long way toward resolving that. I think another route that you might consider taking in a later debate, if you are kind of interested in it, is that I do think that one area of the debate where you're quite a bit ahead is kind of on the way that that nation states respond to economic growth versus economic collapse. I actually do think that going into the 2NR, where you're like a little bit light on the Clary evidence, you're way ahead on this question of like cooperation happens because of a collapse, not because of growth. So I think that there's like an interesting argument to be made about whether or not international cooperation is maybe required in order for space colonization to occur. Like, is it something that we need to cooperate on? And thus, is it something that actually would be stopped if we have like aggressive sort of like competition between nations due to like limited resources and economic growth? That to me seems like sort of an interesting area that you might be able to like get into in terms of the DDEV debate, but it again like isn't really part of this debate. The other real reason that I think that you're like behind in this debate is just because of like a lack of impact comparison and a lack of like impact framing in the 2 and R. You are like spreading yourself out really thin instead of just like going for a big push on one particular like internal link to an impact that you think might outweigh this space call stuff. And the 2AR is like almost the exact opposite, where he's just like, well, I guess we're just going to talk about space call now, and extinction outweighs, right? So like if you would have had a really big push about like the speed of the neg impacts, or like, you know, the time frame of the neg impacts as compared to the sort of AF stuff, that seems to be a considerably easier route to victory than anything else, right? I mean, if their big offensive push has to do with space colonization at the end of the 1AR, then like that's like pretty long term. You have this defense to tech stuff that seems to indicate that that it might not even be possible, and that it would certainly take a long time and a lot of like capitalist growth in order for those things to occur. So to me, just like a sort of like time framey type 2 and R probably would have been a little bit better and much like faster route to victory. But since that wasn't really the way that the 2 and R went down, I thought that we need to get off the rock. Otherwise, we are like terminally dead. And that even if there's a little bit of a reason that you know, that might not happen, it's still probably worth the risk. Another, like, I guess the first question I kind of resolved was the sustainability debate. And I kind of figured that the evidence set is considerably better for a couple of reasons. I think that the first one is that the Bailey evidence kind of has like a uniqueness claim about the way that resources are being used in the status quo, and how we're becoming more efficient at using those resources, that I don't think is ever really like explicitly answered in the warrants that you all read in the debate. At least I'm not sure if it's in those cards, but I didn't find it in any of the text that was read. And then the second thing about the sustainability debate was kind of this McAfee piece of evidence, I think. And I thought that it was pretty good, sort of on the question of whether or not capitalism and technological developments were going to be able to resolve any sort of resource shortages that we might run across. So I thought cap probably was sustainable, and the growth probably was sustainable, and then that a risk that we could get off the rock with that sustainable growth outweighs any sort of negative risks.
Sweet. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good debate, y'all.
Good job, everybody. Stan Mauricio, it's nice to see you guys. I never judged you before. Way to go.
Yes, good luck.
Good
I
tournament.
enjoyed judging you all a couple times at this tournament. Hey, just one quick thing. I know I kind of got on you all about the doc. I would say that like the reason that like in online debate, especially, like you never know if your judges are having like internet issues or anything else that might cause them to rely on the doc a little bit. So like, sorry for being a pain, but really this year, like try and pay particular attention to the docs that you're sending out, because like you want them to be reflective of the debate. So
yeah, I actually was taking notes on that. I'm like, wait, did I miss this? And I kept looking back. I'm like, this is a good impact. This actually gets extinction level. And thank you, Tim, for pointing it out. I had to go back to my flow a couple times.
Yeah, that's on me. I forgot to say.
You're good.
That.
I don't think it was malicious or anything. I just think I'm like really trying to like key into it with the online stuff this year, just because like there's so much more opportunity for people to accidentally goof. And I know that's like a lot of pressure to put on you all, but yeah. So
Hey, Vic Austin, or just leave the important cards off the dock.
Just one more quick question. Like, I know the 1R like kind of dropped the ball in the space call stuff, but is there like a place I couldn't got more time? Because I was really stretched. Like I did cover a lot of bases, especially with the 2AC was pretty large on DDev. Like where I know maybe it's like I think we ended up losing sustainability, but like I don't know if spending less time there would have. I don't know. Like, is there anything I should have done better?
I think it was just the nature of the arguments you made. I don't think like just a simple like colonization's impossible, takes too long, something like that one card saying that as opposed to going for this big turn on SETI, I think may have been better.
Will you email me that question? I'm stuck at the school and want to go home, so I want to look through the cards a little bit more to give you good feedback on that. But just seriously, shoot me an email with that question, and I'll think about it some more.
For sure. Thank you.
I mean, their F's better, but like I think that Ellis's like link turn, like the impact calc that like you're, because you are. I mean, you just gotta like. Yeah, I mean, just everything he said you know, it's nice with a 2 in R, but it can start in the 1 in R. Like if the problem is you just need to make your impacts happen faster so that space call can't solve them. So some kind of like time frame argument for either one, or some explanation of where you're way ahead on, which is like econ degrowth, econ decline causes or prevents war, like how that accesses space. Like I thought that was, you know, what he said was smart and real. And I got that, you know, the 2AR said nanobots and that that you didn't read the ozone stuff, but you know, but I don't think you put it in the. I don't think you did that on purpose and put it in the thing, even though that was ultimately important to both my decision analysis. But because it did implicate like that, like it, you know. But I think, you know, it wasn't. I mean, if it's not weighed in the 2 in R, it doesn't really help if it was said at some point in the debate. So I don't think it was like malicious or on purpose or anything. If so, that would be bullshit. But I don't think you all did that.
I was concerned about 2AC time coverage on Baudrillard because like I basically wasn't sure how much I should allocate, and I was basically forcing myself to go really fast on the 2AC and 2AR. That was good on like time coverage.
Yeah,
good.
I think that given the probably 27 people who G-chatted me or texted me over the course of this debate saying, wow, you're in a Baudrillard debate. And I kept thinking, I'm like, the collective 10,000 IQ points that is the Westminster coaching staff would probably tell you that with Wheels and I on this panel, that's, well, I don't know about Wheels, but like me for sure, I just don't understand Baudrillard. Like, that's the problem. Like, I was clinging to the 2NC for dear life. Like, what can I got to pick stuff up here. I don't understand the debates that well. So, like, my thinking was like, yeah, this is going to be DDev and it's defense.
I mean, for me, it's like, it just depends on whether it, like, if they debate the case, then it's good. If it just becomes a critique of debate and it's like becomes debate bad and like just framework and a critique of fiat, then I'm not interested. So, like, I think when, you know, like, the 2NC cross-X was pretty humorous, you know, but like,
yeah.
But when he said like, if you win your F's true, then like, you know, if you win your advantage true or something, then like you do win or something. I'm just like, okay, well, you know, like I just think like, you know, like I don't know, see what at that point it's not. Is it so different than like security or something that you would vote for to?
Yeah. I just vote on framework.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, not that much.
No, it's good.
Some luck.
No, I mean, like, I think like the way the K was debated was, you know, the way I would like. So that matters more than what it is. All right. You have another question?
Thank you.
Thank you.